Hi, and thanks for watching another instructional video for CSCI 1300. In this video series, we're going to be covering how to use arrays of objects, and this time we're going to be testing our array of objects we're going to be parsing from a file that we will use a menu function in order to print the information and create some kind of a user-defined interface to represent the inventory of our truck lot. So we have an array of truck objects that we have filled using a while loop, and we're doing file AO here. We fill up this array with objects here in our loop, and then we call a menu in order to do the job of actually accessing the information, printing it, and looking for particular things inside of that array. So let's look at the menu and how we actually do these operations. This particularly pertains to printing the information of an array with a bunch of objects. It also pertains to using all of the functions related to getting information from that particular object at any given index. So I'm going to have a couple of helper variables here. The big one to note is that I'm using a Boolean variable to keep my menu running. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to have a make, choice, and end model. So in make, choice, and end model. So if you wanted to search for a make or you wanted to search for a model, we can do that using user-defined input. So at the top of the menu, what I do is I print a welcome message and I show what should be done here. You can choose a 1, 2, or 3. And then we're going to grab the user choice. We're going to convert that using a stoy operation and then switch off of that user-defined choice. So we have 3 cases, 1, 2, and 3, and a default case which will restart our function over again. So we're calling our function over and over again within our function so that we can just keep a loop going without using a while loop. So this is a recursive implementation, but you could also do this with a while loop as well. So here, in case 1, if the user choice chooses to put in the value of 1, then we're going to ask for the truck make because we can search by model in case 1. So here we would use our user-defined input from input make, and then we would search the array and see if we can find that particular make in the stored information. So notice that we use a loop here based on the size that we pass in here at the top. So this is the number of different things stored into the array. And what we're going to do is we say if the object in the array at some I index, and we call .getMake, which would return us the variable for the make. It would return the contents of that variable in that particular object at that particular index in the array. If that return value is not equal to the user-defined input that we are searching for, then we're going to add a count, which basically means that we're going to just keep a track of a count, and if that count reaches the total number of things in the array, then there are no trucks of that particular type in our array of objects. Now, let's move on here and talk about the next part here, which is if we do the same thing and we print the get make here, what would happen is that we would, if we did see that particular thing, then we would reset our flag, and then we would actually print that information here. So here we're saying if we actually get the make and it's the same, then we will actually print that information to the user along with the year and the model. So notice we're using .getYear and .getModel in order to access the contents and print them at that particular index in the array for that particular object, along with the mileage as well. In case 2, what we're going to do is print the inventory. So in order to print the inventory of our array of objects, what we're going to do is loop through the array based on the size that we passed in, and we're going to see out the lot at I, which is our array. So we're accessing each object at an I index and using the .get functions in order to return the year, the make, the model, the mileage for each one of these particular inventoried vehicles. Otherwise, we're going to have an exit function. And if any other thing is selected, then our default option in our cases, the default case will handle the invalid option. We'll print something to the user to tell them to choose another option. Then we'll call our menu again and just keep the process going. So this menu has a cycle to it based on the function calls here. So if we want to reprint the information and start over at the top of the menu, then we just call the menu in these particular cases. And notice that we keep calling the menu here as long as we haven't reached case 3 where we exit. And this will exit the entire scope of the program after we do that. So let's run this code now that we've gone through the menu and talked about how to access things through our getter functions. So I'm going to compile the files. I'm compiling the driver file.cpp and my implementation file.cpp together. So I'm not including the H file because it is referenced by both of these files in the hashtag include class.h up at the top of each one of these. And I don't get any errors, so that's a great sign. And I'm going to use a.out to start printing the menu. So notice that we are printing this information here from the menu. And I'm going to print the contents of the inventory to make sure that we grabbed everything correctly. So when I press 2, I notice that I'm getting all of the information here from my txt file. So I have successfully parsed all of this information and it's stored within the array of objects. And this is printing because we're using the get functions in order to print the information stored. Now, if I wanted to do option 1, I could search by a model. So let's try this. Let's enter a make like the Tesla. And we can see here that we return is a 2020 Cybertruck with 500 miles per gallon. If we did the same thing here, but we did it for Ford, we would get 3 different vehicles here based on the fact that we're searching for a particular variable in the array and printing out everything related to that particular variable in the array. So we're only printing the Ford information associated with those objects. So we have 3 Fords, one is a Bronco, one is an F-150, and one is a Raptor. And we're printing the year, the name, and the mileage. So now we've walked through using the H file, the implementation file, and the driver in order to parse and store information from a txt file to simulate some kind of real-life scenario with which we would need objects to represent abstract data. I hope this was helpful and it was informative and it can be applied to your projects. Thanks for watching and happy coding!